is much more than the place where you can store code. But let's see it in action. Meet Mona, a developer who's just been assigned a new project. Mona uses GitHub projects to manage her tasks and track iterations of work. GitHub's customizable views, filters, and layouts make it easy for teams to work their way. Mona quickly sets up an on-demand development environment using GitHub Codespaces. No more fighting with dependencies. She dives into coding with GitHub Copilot, making her code more readable and efficient. She then sets up automated testing with GitHub Actions, easily version controlled like the rest of her code. Meanwhile, Mona's colleague had set up repository rules to enforce DevOps governance practices across their GitHub organization. Mona avoids leaking secrets by using GitHub Advanced Security secret scanning push protection, and also identifies potential security vulnerabilities using code scanning. In this short video, we've seen how GitHub can streamline your experience throughout the development lifecycle.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you're joining today. You made it. Welcome to Friday. Welcome to Open Source Friday. This Friday is extra special because it's also the beginning of Maintainer Month. If anyone who's watching us, who joined this stream knows what Maintainer Month is, go ahead and drop a comment on the chat, please. But in case you don't, I'll go ahead and share my screen quickly because I do want to make sure that if you are an open source maintainer, you take the time to be celebrated and to have some fun this month. So what you see on the screen and behind that, we got to talk to production. This team of one is not doing a good job today. But Maintainer Month is basically a month that GitHub utilizes to celebrate, gather, and provide a space for maintainers to talk to each other, share best practices. I've been very fortunate to be able to witness Maintainer Month and collaborate with my team, who actually is in charge of it. And there's always just incredible quality maintainers and quality conversations. I like to think of it as a giant therapy session for all of us. So it's really great. If you want to participate in any of the activities on Maintainer Month, go ahead and go to maintainermonth.github.com. You can check out the schedule. There is a load of streams, some special events. Next week, my colleague Kara is going to be streaming with, I think, Finos. So check out the schedule, check out all the events. And if you are a maintainer, you should have received an invitation. I believe there was a list going around somewhere. So this is a month for you to celebrate you and everything that you do. So thank you for being here. Well, today, I don't know if you noticed, I'm a little bit shaken up. They say don't meet your heroes. I had a chance to meet my hero a long time ago, but I usually don't get nervous for these things anymore because you folks are amazing. But today I am a little bit nervous because I'm talking to someone who I have deep, deep, deep admiration for and who actually I had the immense fortune of working with. Although working with is probably too much of a, yeah. I was in the same room where Mike was at one point. So it was an unbelievable privilege to have an opportunity to just learn from them and then get to know them a little bit. Mike is from the UK, from Scotland. And I'm going to go straight to the bio before we bring them on and I'm going to read, which I don't like to do, but I want to make sure I don't miss any details because this is a big deal. This is a big guest for us here at Open Source Friday. So Mike McQuaid, if you're here, you probably saw the ad. You know, he is one of the lead maintainer of Homebrew. He was a early engineer at GitHub, number 232. For context, now GitHub has, I believe, over 4,000 employees. So definitely early. He was the number 3 Homebrew maintainer. So if you want to talk about someone who's been there, done that, probably has the scars to show for it, that will be Mike. Over 15 years of professional experience building consumer software at extreme scales. He is a published author. If you want to learn about Git, his book is Git in Practice and is by Manning. That's the publisher. And it's available everywhere where you can buy books. He is a speaker of many, many, many international conferences. As I mentioned earlier, he resides in Edinburgh, Scotland. Anyone from Edinburgh here? Hello. Currently, he is working, still maintaining Homebrew for all of you as the project leader in longest running maintainer. And then also he is CTO and co-founder of a brand new company, well, as of last year, called Workbrew. Mike is leading product and engineering there. And what Workbrew is about, but we're of course going to ask him, is providing the missing features and support for companies who are using Homebrew. So all the best things of Homebrew, but for companies. It's my absolute honor to welcome you to this tiny stage. Let me make it bigger. There we are. I don't know why it came on so little. Hey, Mike, welcome.
Hey, Andrea. Great to see you. And yeah, I guess thank you for a very nice introduction and a very humble one. It was a real pleasure and treat working with Andrea. If anyone watching this gets the chance to do so, I would thoroughly recommend it. She's a lovely person to work with and is very good at her job.
And my face exploded. Oh, thank you, Mike. I appreciate you. And I appreciate you taking the time of coming by. It's been a moment since you left GitHub. Not a year, no.
Yeah, just over a year. Just over a year.
It can be. Okay, wow. And of course, you went off to do your own thing, co-found your own company, which is super exciting. I do want us to touch on all the amazing work that you're doing with Workbrew. And for folks here who might be interested in a solution like that, it'll be great to maybe show them if you're up for it. Yeah. But I also want to talk to you, take it way back. When we think about open source thought leadership, and I use that term loosely because there's a lot more than thought leadership that you do. But there is so much incredible content that you put out to support other maintainers, based, of course, on your own experiences from leading and maintaining this project that is so pivotal to all of us for so many years. But we have to take it way back. we're going to do a little bit digging here, because I don't think I've ever actually asked you this question. How did you come about being the maintainer and project leader for Homebrew? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the maintaining came before the leading by quite a long way. So I guess in 2009, when Homebrew kind of originally got created, that was a guy called Max Howell, MXCL on GitHub. He was using kind of package managers on Mac and stuff like that, and he never found anything that kind of quite fit his needs. So he wanted to make his own thing called Homebrew, and he had worked on it for a while. I'd heard about it and stuff like that, and then I'd been kind of like building something else, like not really my own package manager, but like a sort of hacking a different package manager to work the way I wanted it to. And then I saw Homebrew, and it was like, oh, this looks like this works how I want it to work. So I just submitted some pull requests. I think he created it maybe April, May 2009. This is probably like August, September 2009.
Wow.
Submitted some pull requests of just like stuff I wanted to be in there for my own use, and then kind of more pull requests, and then eventually I guess got asked to kind of join the project and review other people's stuff, and it went on from there. Although I guess I realized I just misspoke actually, because I believe in 2009 when I started, GitHub didn't have pull requests yet. So the way things used to work is you would open an issue with I think it was like a link to a commit in your fork.
Wow.
Or like message Max on IRC with a commit to your fork, and then he would like pull it in that way. So that's I guess how I got started, and then I just sort of never really stopped. I guess we're 15 years later, and I'm still working on Homebrew, still reviewing pull requests, still trying to fix stuff and make the project grow and be better each year than it was the year before.
I love the fact that you were actually kind of doing your own hacky solution, and then found a thing that was like, okay, yeah, this is actually, let me contribute to that. You haven't taken a break in being a maintainer of Homebrew, right? Like you've been continuously maintaining the project.
I've taken holidays where I've
of course
checked on Homebrew. But yeah, like I haven't had probably more than, I don't know, at most 2 weeks probably in that 15-year period where I've not reviewed at least some pull requests.
Oh my gosh, Mike. And how many maintainers are there now on the core team?
I'm not sure. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head. I think it's 30 something. If you go to Homebrew, so one of the things that I really like about Homebrew is we, partly inspired by me and partly lots of other people around there, like we really lean really heavily into automation. So if you go on the README, there's like a list of who all the people are in Homebrew and the current maintainers and stuff like that. I think there's 30 of us. And yeah, that list is like automated. So if someone gets, added to or removed to the Homebrew maintainers list, a little bot in the background will then open up a PR to change the README and all this type of stuff. So that's, because this is open source, of course, you can go and look at the code. If you're like, hey, I want to do that on my project, then, go have a look at the code and you can figure out how to do it yourself.
Awesome. Okay. All of you who are looking to create your organization's README and do it in a way that makes sense and automated, go check out the Homebrew repo and leave them a star while you're at it, please. Not that you need them. It's got plenty. I noticed you have a discussions also there that's super active too. I'm going to share the link for this on the screen too. So like folks, go check out the discussions so you can get a feel for how the community is. But okay, so you joined, you started contributing, you did such a great job that they invited you to be part of the first 3, I suppose, at that time, if you were maintainer number 3. And then you have not stopped. And how many years now?
15
years. 15 years. No end in sight for Mike. No end in sight for Mike. I've read a lot of the content and by the way, folks, if you have not checked out Mike's website, and the content that he writes is absolutely fantastic, especially for you. If you're a maintainer or someone who is aspiring to take on the big responsibility of maintaining, contributing to a project, take a look. I've quoted you so many times. One of the last bits that you did about maintainers don't owe you anything. When I was reading it, my neck about broke because I was like, yes, exactly. It's so easy for us to become so entitled. And we come a long way from having to send a link to the commit to do a pull request Like, wow, it's been a journey for sure. So definitely check out Mike's website. I'm gonna put it on the chat, so that you can give it a read when you have some time, because there's definitely a ton of stuff going on there. So obviously, it's been 15 years. A lot has changed. The original idea is there, right? You're still the missing component to Linux and Mac. You're still so essential to developers in the world. If you look back at like all the work that you've done in these 15 years, like, is there any milestone in particular that you're super proud of, that you're like, when we did this, when GitHub created the pull request and it was easier? No, not that one, but for the project in particular, is there something that you look back and you're like, that was a sort of like a shifting moment in Homebrew?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, the nice thing is there's been so many things that, I mean, there's been a few things I've done kind of by myself, and there's been lots of things I've been involved with or reviewed or whatever. I guess me personally, probably the biggest thing I felt like I did was, I guess, transition Homebrew from being, when Homebrew started, it was, I guess, what we would call a from source package manager. So when you run an install command, it would go and download the stuff, the source code from maybe a GitHub repo, build everything on your machines. This was back in Intel Mac days, so your fans were going spinning away, something like a spaceship was going to take off. But yeah, but like that was a huge waste of like time and energy, because essentially like everyone's machine ended up building the same thing. So I created, again, leading into the beer metaphor, this thing called like bottles for Homebrew, which was our binary packages. And I kind of designed the first kind of system of doing that. And originally that was all built by me on my machine, and then built by me in a VM and on my machine. And then we did a Kickstarter, and that then turned into being, we had our own dedicated hardware that it ran on, and then VMs on those hardware, and then virtualized hardware. And now it's kind of all plugged into GitHub Actions and stuff like that. And yeah, it's kind of nice just having seen, now we kind of are delivering whatever it is, like thousands of packages with probably hundreds of updates every week, all through that kind of infrastructure, and using that packaging format that I sort of like relatively naively created back in, I don't know what year it would have been, maybe 2010 or something like that. Yeah, so that makes me feel happy every time I see a little, like, pouring the bottle in Homebrew on someone's screen. I'm like, yeah, like I helped do that. So yeah, that's probably my proudest little addition to Homebrew.
I love that. If you have been using the Homebrew long enough to notice this transition, definitely leave a comment. A big thank you for making that happen and making it easier for everyone else to use it. I love the beer metaphors. I have to ask, where did that come from? Like, why Homebrew? You know why he named it that?
I think just Max, the creator, he liked beer a lot, and then I think he came up with the original idea after having been drinking some beer. So like that, you can see in the first commit for Homebrew ever, it's like the kind of initial readme of like describing the project. And yeah, and one of the things was, I think the last question that he asked himself that's in the readme is, did you create Homebrew while under the influence of beer? And the answer was yes. So yeah, that's where some people don't really like the beer theme. Other people are fine with the beer theme, but hate the brown color scheme on the website and everything like that. But I don't know, like, I feel it's kind of got its own quirky charm at this point.
Yeah, I love that. Well, listen, you can't please everyone with aesthetics, so it does the job. I love the cask. Like, everything is kind of, it ties together, like the packages from the tap. Like, everything is sort of the same. I find that quirkiness, flipping nerdy awesomeness. So that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we talked a little bit about when you got started, sort of the pivotal moment for you, that, well, a big development, something that you contributed to the project. Where are you now as a project? What is the future hold? I'm not trying to fast forward too much, but I know there are folks that join because they're particularly interested in talking roadmap. And
yeah,
so far I've seen a lot of comments loving Homebrew, but I'm sure there'll be someone that comes up with some grievances. But I wanted to hear from you, like, as a team, what you're thinking, and if there's anything in particular that you could share with us, that'd be great.
Well, shout out to, I saw George's comment there that just got highlighted. I mean, that's particularly satisfying for me because the last big project I worked on when I was still at GitHub was the merge queue. So it's nice kind of when the two things overlap like that. But yeah, with Homebrew, the future is it's interesting because like as each year goes on, in the past there's been kind of like really big things that's like, oh well, we must transition from this to this or whatever. I don't know that there's lots of big things like that coming up with Homebrew in the near future, but I guess two of our big concerns maybe for the rest of the year are just kind of improving performance and improving security. Like we're aware, if I did a Google like auto completions the other day, and one of the things that always pops up and people ask is like, why is Homebrew slow? So we have a bunch of maintainers in, I think, a month or two actually, who are going to have probably some sort of hackathon where they're going to focus on performance and security work in Homebrew. So I would imagine after that, like certain aspects of Homebrew will be faster still. I merged some performance related pull requests this week. And yeah, I guess we're just trying to make Homebrew continually faster, more reliable, more secure, and just better for people.
I love that. And thanks, Donkey, for the comment. You've seen a lot of change in the last 5 years. That's awesome. Things are getting better. The talk of this hackathon, this is a group of maintainers that's organizing, or is it just contributors to the project that decided to like focus on performance?
Yeah. So we have like a project leadership committee, which is some of those people are maintainers and some of them are people just passionate about Homebrew who want to kind of help with the organization and stuff like that. So the project leadership committee are the ones who've organized it, and Homebrew has some kind of funds. You can go and look at our open collective to see the money that's been commonly donated to the project. So we're using some of those funds to sponsor some maintainers to get together in one place in like the next few months, basically, so that they can work together on this stuff and try and improve some performance and security aspects of Homebrew.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about what it takes. How can one become first a contributor, and then how do you pull into maintainers? But before we do that, folks, if you use Homebrew, and likely you do, go ahead and sponsor Homebrew and the Homebrew project so they can go ahead and do things like sponsor these maintainers to take the time to work on the things that matter to you, and apparently a lot of Google searches about. So you can sponsor them through GitHub, as you see on the screen, or through your open collective, which I am going to pull and add a link to it as well.
Although I personally particularly like it when you use GitHub sponsors, because again, that was one of the things I helped to build at GitHub. And it makes me happy whenever anyone uses it. So
right. I love the synergies. It's like, it's your thing and also your thing. So that's fantastic. Okay, folks, there you hear it. And again, this is one of those things that like any contribution matters. Anything that you can put towards the project is only gonna go towards the needs of the project. And I love the transparency of like how all the funds are being spent. That's the beauty of open source. Everything out in the open. Questions
and if you don't have the money to donate right now, that's completely fine. And if you have time instead, then feel free to donate your code and your brain instead. That is equally, if not more valuable than any financial donation.
100% agree. So let's talk about that. How can one become a contributor to the Homebrew project? What does it take to have a PR merge? And how do I go about getting started?
Homebrew has a nice little section. If you go to the Homebrew repository that was linked earlier, you can see there's a contributing section, and that kind of has a nice description of like how to get involved with Homebrew. We've got some fairly extensive documentation that kind of guides you through things, and some nice little ways of kind of getting started. Because we've got so many packages in Homebrew, chances are one of them is outdated or could do with some little code being cleaned up or whatever. And that's how most people get started with Homebrew. Most people start, there's a repository. Homebrew is sort of split between the package manager itself, which is in a repository we call Homebrew Brew, which is like github.com/homebrew/brew. And then there's Homebrew Core, which is the main package for Formula, which are like the main packages in Homebrew. So most people, pretty much all maintainers, I guess myself included, get started with modifying Formula before they go and start digging into the Homebrew internals or the package manager itself. Unfortunately, I don't review as much of the Formula land anymore because we have lots of other maintainers who do that way better than me. So you might not see me until you go and make a pull request over in Homebrew Brew one day. But yeah, that's the best way to get involved. And we have, I think let's see. So the package manager Homebrew Brew has had 960 contributors over the years. And Homebrew Core is, I think, quite a lot higher than that. Give me 1 second while I find the exact number. So we seem to be at over 5,000. I think it's over 10,000 actually. Like there's lots of contributors to Homebrew Core over the years. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in, then there's a very good chance that you'll be able to find something and get involved. A common thing you may get is people say, oh, well, this is written in Ruby, and I don't know Ruby yet. I would encourage you to take a look anyway. Ruby is quite an easy language to get started with, and particularly like Homebrew Core, like it doesn't really feel like you're writing Ruby as much as just kind of writing Homebrew's own special little language. And also, I guess, encouragement for anyone out there. So for me, the first Ruby I ever really wrote was for Homebrew. And then, I've had a career since then where I've been mostly writing Ruby. So sometimes it's a nice way of kind of, with Homebrew or any open source project, I guess, it's a nice way of kind of getting started with maybe a language or a technology or a framework you don't already know.
Exactly. This is a good, well, for all of you Rubyists, a perfect fit. And for all of you who might be interested in learning a new programming language, maybe it's Ruby. Maybe you take a look and this is how you start. So that's cool. So you think for folks who are starting, the formulas will probably be like a good point of entry.
Yeah.
Starting, clearing up, updating that. I'm sure the documentation is beautiful and fantastic, and it has all the things that you need to know so that you make sure everything is stable and compatible as you're doing all your work. So you hear from Mike. If you can contribute financially, please do. But if you cannot, then you can also contribute with your brain power and take a look at, there is likely to be something that needs to be updated, and why not? Go give the team a hand. Any other community initiatives that you have going, besides, of course, contributions of code and like the core team having the hackathons and stuff like that?
Yeah, I guess we always value people kind of submitting pull requests for stuff like both fixing bugs, improving the style stuff, but also if there's a feature of Homebrew that you feel like is missing or some small addition, then that's always valuable. Also in our kind of discussions forum that you linked earlier, Andrea, there's lots of people asking questions in there. So if you go in there and you see the answer to a question is in your head and you're like, no one's answered this yet, then it's really lovely to go and help people out that way and answer questions that way. And then similarly on our kind of issues, sometimes it's helpful if someone is asking for help in an issue, like if you know what the solution is already, then that's a good place to jump in. But that's a little bit more tricky because I guess most of the times, by the time people are opening an issue, it's generally like they might need one of the maintainers to help them out.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, listen, this is all excellent advice. So now you know if this is a project that you're interested in contributing in. There's many ways that you can do it. And I love the idea of helping folks out in the discussions, because even if you're new to Homebrew, new to software engineering and being a developer, you already know more today than you do the person who started, yesterday, or they're not, it's something like that. You already have something to share. So definitely it's nice to be able to do that. Okay, well, so we know a little bit about what you're thinking for the future. We talked a little bit about how you became a maintainer, what the core team is doing. Love that you share with us that there's going to be a focus on performance. So stay tuned, because I guess the next 5 years are going to be even more awesome than the last 5 years, like someone commented. I appreciate you sharing a bit of background on that. And then I have to ask, especially because you have such a just wealth of knowledge and experience being a maintainer, if you give someone who's seriously looking, maybe they started maintaining some packages, maybe they started, and now they're really considering, you know what, I think I'm gonna, if I get invited to be a core maintainer, I'm gonna do it. There isn't really a manual out there anywhere telling people, that's a book you can write, Mike. They're telling folks like, you should think about this before you do that. Like, what is something that you wish you knew before you accepted that Slack message, or I don't know, what are you using there? The DM.
Yeah. So I think it was probably an IRC DM. I forget what they called that in IRC days, but yeah. So I mean,
throwback.
I guess like a lot of the stuff that I wish I knew, thankfully, has between Homebrew's got some documentation that is, if you go to docs.brew.sh, I mentioned before with our automation, like our documentation is okay. It could always be better, but we try and have documentation for maintainers and even Homebrew commands for maintainers to use and things like that all be nice and out there and open so other people can learn for things and stuff like that. Essentially, we try and keep things private as little as possible. As you know, as long as it kind of makes the project kind of function well and be safe. So if you check out like the Homebrew's documentation, there's some maintainer advice there, like guidelines for maintainers and stuff like that. And then, as Andrea mentioned, more generally, like outside of Homebrew, like I've written a little bit on my blog over the years about things like, I guess the post you highlighted earlier, I guess one of my more, amongst some demographics, popular posts, some people don't like it very much, is one titled Open Source Maintainers Owe You Nothing. And in some ways, yeah, I wrote that to myself for something I wish that I had very early on. Like it's very easy when you're maintaining open source software to feel kind of overwhelmed by the expectations of other people, or like if someone is being really entitled or very rude or is very angry that you introduced a bug which negatively affects them. It's very easy to kind of internalize that stuff and feel like this is my fault. I have to stay up all night fixing this or whatever it may be. And just, knowing that you don't actually have to do literally anything with open source, right? It's always up to you. What you do is, I think, really helpful. And I think for me, being involved with Homebrew for 15 years, I think that's the thing that's managed to help me stay involved, is that figuring out that stuff and having a bit more, I guess, like work-life balance, open source life balance, maybe perhaps, where I don't have Homebrew GitHub notifications on my phone. I don't have Homebrew Slack on my phone for maintainers. Like for me, it's Homebrew is a thing I do when I sit down on my computer, and when I'm not on my computer, I don't get bothered by Homebrew stuff. And if somehow there was some urgent Homebrew thing that only I have access to be able to do this thing, then enough of the maintainers have my personal cell number that they could get in touch and let me know that way. But that's not happened, or at least hasn't happened for at least 5 years. So yeah, it's nice to kind of feel like, partly through attitude shift and partly through kind of hard work, it's at a point where it's probably not dependent on any one person, including myself. And it's a bit more of a chilled vibe. And we, I guess, kind of like families, like we look out for each other, right? Like another nice thing I like about the Homebrew project that I've tried to introduce is, if you're really rude or unkind to one of the other maintainers, or a bunch of our users or contributors, then we don't like that. And particularly when the maintainers are giving up most of the time their unpaid labor on evenings and weekends, it's, if you can't be polite and you can't be civil, and if you're asked to adjust your behavior and you don't adjust your behavior, then that maintainer's having a good day is more important than your pull request or issue being fixed or whatever it may be. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have any humans who want to work on Homebrew anymore, then the project is dead. So the most important thing is the humans behind it.
100%. I think it's so easy to lose that. We cannot dehumanize what we can see. And so the people in the background doing all the work become just like dots. And yeah, I've seen some of the comments. I mean, there's plenty. Please read my blog, because there is a lot of experiences and stuff there that would just kind of make you just sometimes just lose faith in humanity. But we're all here supporting open source. We're here on Fridays talking about it. So we're going to create a new generation of folks that are going to be much more grateful to folks like you who put in so much of their time. This separation of like how you view work and view maintaining the project, were you like that from the beginning? Because 15 years is a long time to maintain something without burning out, without just saying like, I'm sorry, I'm out.
No, I definitely wasn't like that at the beginning. In the early days, I had Homebrew Slack on my phone. I was doing a lot more stuff on like late into my evenings and my weekends. And, if I got pinged at the dinner table when I was eating my meal, I'd, go and let my food get cold when I went and fixed things. It took a long time to learn that, because I didn't really have anyone to sort of teach me that stuff. But also, like getting older, and, I've got several kids now, and a dog and a wife and a therapist, and, all of these things kind of help you like figure out your priorities and what's important and what's not, and what needs to be done right now versus later. And and I think also just this stuff makes you more efficient with your time, partly as well. It's, I feel like nothing sharpens the mind than knowing that, well, at this time I'm going to have dinner with my kids, and if this isn't fixed by this time, then it's not fixed today. So yeah, stuff like that is helpful. But yeah, it's something I would encourage everyone to think about. It's less, don't need to be quite maybe as strict as I am on some of this stuff when you're younger, but the older you get, if you want to still be around in 10 years, then yeah, it's the sustainability aspect is very important, I think.
Please take note. young and old people alike. I needed this message today, by the way.
Good.
I
I'm
needed this
glad.
message today. So thank you. Thank you for that. Nothing is the end of the world, folks. I promise you that. Even though we feel it and we take everything so personal. I'm like that. I take a lot of pride in my work. So to me, everything is an emergency, but I need to slow down. There's a question from Jorge or Georgie, sorry. Let's see if we can help. Mike, thanks for the session. Can you give us any color on the work Homebrew is doing via Alpha Omega OpenSSF? How is it going so far? What's securing the packaging supply chain with respect to securing the packaging?
That's a great question, and it's I guess what they might call in music land a deep cut, because it's a small effort that's very important, but kind of not widely known. That there's some kind of ongoing work now going on through the OpenSSF, and we've got some Homebrew maintainers and some non-maintainers who are kind of getting involved right now to essentially increase the confidence. I mentioned bottles earlier. This is kind of, I guess, part of kind of securing that. So when you download a binary package, a bottle, then we automatically run a checksum on that to make sure that it's verified appropriately and things like this. But this is adding another layer on top of that, where you have the ability with GitHub Actions now. It has support for, I think it's attestations.
Yeah, did you see it? Now it's public data. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what this is related to. So this is effectively saying, because we build stuff on GitHub Actions, having a way that you can, with right now it's like an opt-in Homebrew command, but eventually it will be part of the actual full flow in Homebrew itself, of being able to say, hey, this thing that I downloaded, is that definitely like legit and from Homebrew itself, and being able to follow the chain essentially to GitHub and say, and GitHub can verify, yeah, this was built from this GitHub Actions build at this time and this date and whatever. So we're going to have that and backfill it as well for some of our binary packages. Well, eventually all of our binary packages. So yeah, so that work that Georgia mentioned is going really well. And yeah, I'm very, very happy with the progress that's been going so far.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk about your new venture, please, because I'm super curious as to how was it born. Obviously, and I guess there was no other company doing this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, there's been kind of, people have talked to, I guess, me and probably some other Homebrew maintainers for years about the idea of like, hey, like, what about having a company around Homebrew? There's quite a lot of open source projects. Not all good news around that in the news recently, without naming any names. But there's been a lot of, open source oriented companies that have kind of tried to figure out, hey, can we make a business around this open source project? And yeah, I in the past have been kind of never that kind of into the idea. Partly never felt like the right time for either me or for the Homebrew project itself. But now Homebrew has like a really robust kind of non-profit governance structure and its own funds and stuff like that. It felt like it was a good time. I was leaving GitHub anyway, and I had two former GitHub coworkers who I loved working with, and the three of us kind of got together and came up with this thing that my CEO, John, called Workbrew. It was, I thought, an excellent idea of the name. And it's essentially, what Homebrew is to doing stuff at home, Workbrew is to doing stuff at work. So we're building like a layer on top of Workbrew itself, on top of Homebrew, itself. So it makes it easier for people to be, right now we're focused on, if you've got like if you're a security professional, a Mac admin, IT admin, and you have, say like 100, 1,000 devices in your company that are all running Homebrew, and you have something like the XZ or XZ, I guess as the Americans would call it, vulnerability from like a few months ago, then right now there's not really a good way of saying, hey, I want to make sure that I have the latest version of that on every machine. So we've built something that can kind of do that. We have a version of Homebrew called Workbrew that runs on your machine. It looks and feels exactly the same as normal Homebrew, but it runs under its own user for improved security. And on top of that as well, we have a console, like a cloud service called the Workbrew console, and then a background service that runs on your machine called the Workbrew agent. And effectively between the three of them, you have the ability to run stuff in Homebrew as you normally would, but in a more secure fashion, and allow your kind of IT administrator to be able to upgrade like stuff throughout their fleet of devices as they need to. So that provides kind of improved security for people. And we've got a lot more stuff coming down the pipeline to make Workbrew even better for engineers who are using Homebrew at work, who want a little bit more in the way of kind of stability and better handling of versions and things like that. So we're in private beta right now, but if you go to workbrew.com, you can read more details. You can get a demo with our CEO, but we expect that we're going to be in public beta later this year and maybe even have a full public release later this year. And then we'll be able to release all our pricing information and stuff like that.
Amazing. Okay. Well, so I added a link to the website. So you're on private beta now, but there is a contact. I think there is a contact option there. So if you're interested, definitely hit them up. I don't know if your private beta is closed now, but
yeah. So we're still looking for more people for the private beta. So we're looking for, I guess, what we call design partners right now, which would be people who sign up, start using it, appreciate that we're not kind of at V1 yet, and people who are kind of willing to work with us to kind of give us feedback in exchange for us kind of building the product more in the direction that might be useful to them than they otherwise might get if they join later down the line when we've got more customers in a year or two.
I love that. This is like an administrator's dream, because you don't have to pester everybody to do like your updates, or like now I guess you control everything virtually, right? Like they have complete control of.
Yeah. And we're also trying to do like a fairly, I guess, again, I alluded earlier to some of the kind of less popular stuff around open source. One of the nice things we're trying to do as well is the Workbrew itself is something that you pay money for. We'll have free trials and demos and all that type of stuff as you would expect. But essentially, Workbrew is like a paid project to be used by companies, and Homebrew is and will remain an open source project used by individuals. And in the course of our work on Workbrew and even my personal work on Workbrew, I end up doing a bunch of stuff that makes Homebrew better for people as well. So I feel like it's also one of those nice things, because I can now dedicate more of my time to focusing on Workbrew. I need and want Homebrew to be better. So like in the last week, there's performance optimization in Homebrew sometimes looks like porting a bunch of Ruby code to Bash code because it runs even faster. So I ported a bunch of Ruby stuff to Bash stuff and reordered a bunch of things. So a few commands run 100 times faster than they did before. And that was primarily oriented for Workbrew and for our customers and the way they're using our project. But the nice thing is that benefits everyone who uses Homebrew. So you have more people spending more time working on making Homebrew better now because of Workbrew.
Amazing. Can you show us anything? Are you up for it?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Let me see. So just screen share for a little demo.
Yeah,
here.
there should be a little plus that says percent.
Let me do it. So let's see.
And folks, go ahead and check out the website. And at the beginning of the session, I said we're going to do a little giveaway. So I'm going to put that link again so you can enter, and we'll do it before we go. Let me see what I'll be able to see when your screen pops up, Mike.
Is that popping up or not? Let's see.
Not yet. I only see, not yet.
I think it says I might have to rejoin the stream. Can I leave and come back? Or will that mess?
Absolutely. No, you'll be fine.
Cool. Let me try this. I'll be back in 1 second, everyone. Wait, please.
All right. Please don't leave. Mike is coming back. While Mike is not here, let's try this again. Let's see if I can share this banner while keeping myself there. I feel like that should work. Oh, here we go. All right. So now, Mike, you're back. I'll go ahead and share the QR code again for the giveaway, but I'll share the shortened version so you can go ahead and enter. If you're up for it, you can buy yourself something nice at the shop. Why not? And I dropped the link. And yes, Workbrew does sound dope. Let's take a look at it.
So this is Workbrew. This is the Workbrew console. Right now, as it says, you only can get access if you're in our private beta, but I'll give you a little sneak preview of what we're doing so far. So I'm going to sign in with GitHub because, we're on Open Source Friday. Why not? Let's do that thing. So we're going in here. So I can, if I see, like, I've got my little avatar up here, I've got a few things over here that I can do. I'll just click through these briefly. So this is my Workbrew workspace that I'm on here right now. So that's basically just my collection of things. These devices are all different Macs. So this is my Mac here right now. So we're going to go and have a look and see like what I've got installed. This is also linked to an MDM provider called Kanji. You can download the kind of Workbrew package here, which is nicely signed, or like distribute it through your MDM provider if you're using one of those. I go through here, I can see essentially like the stuff that's on my machine. I can see all my packages that you have. This is all, you can infer this from my brew file. So this is all public anyway. I've got this Node.js is currently outdated. There's a 22.1.0 updated here. So I could click that button and I can go and say, I want to upgrade that machine, make a upgrade node on that machine. I could run that just on my machine here, or I can run them on all the devices in the fleet. And similarly as well, I could go and customize Homebrew on any given machine. I can go and pass some Homebrew environment variables here. There's all the stuff in the man page in here of all the stuff you can get Homebrew to do. So I could go and apply that on the machine. And then that is set in this kind of system-wide location. That means any Homebrew on that machine is going to use these environment variables. So that's our today's little brief demo. Oh no, in fact, let me see. I'll share my terminal actually as well. So
perfect.
Even more fun times in terminal land. Give me 1 second. So where are we? Present, share screen. So
there we go.
This is my, let's see, can I make this a bigger size so you can see some of this? I'm going to try and make this nice and big so everyone can see what I'm doing. Oh no, it's now going too big. This is like Tetris, but with a terminal. This is terrifying. What's happening? Anyway, so this is my terminal. My machine is called MikeBook because I'm a dad and I like silly jokes like that. Yeah, so Homebrew and Workbrew work pretty similar. So if I run brew version, then I can see I'm on Workbrew 0.6. And then Homebrew has all these details. If I run brew config, then I can see all my stuff that I've set up by, my Workbrew version, but then all my Homebrew stuff runs as it normally does. If I have, I guess we saw the node stuff earlier. So let's upgrade node. So this is using Homebrew. If any of you haven't seen Homebrew before, this is like the typical way that Homebrew is doing its thing. As I said, that's the pouring thing that I mentioned earlier. So this makes me, this is a new bug. I'm probably going to go fix this later. So I've gone and poured Node here, which is got my new version of Node.js. I have Homebrew auto clean up everything afterwards. So that's in here. And the only real sign that this is anything different, this is Workbrew, is this little coffee cup here. So instead of using the beer icon, by default, Workbrew will use this little coffee cup. But yeah, but other than that, everything works pretty much the same. But if you want to go in the real fun deep dive stuff, you can go and look. So we have, if I'd one, excuse me, while I figure my current setup. But if we run which brew, this is not actually going. Normally, this would go to opt Homebrew bin brew. So let's see what's going on there. So we have opt Homebrew bin brew, which is like a normal Homebrew installation. Everything in here is like what you would normally see in Homebrew. But this is now all owned by Workbrew now. So when I'm running brew from the opt Workbrew bin, it is running this. This is owned by root instead of normally by Workbrew or by the normal user. So this lets me go and run everything, and I don't need to be an admin, and it all intelligently changes to the other user and stuff like that. So it's nice. It works essentially the same way as Homebrew, but it's dramatically more secure and nicely integrated, so I can kind of send commands to the machine from the remote console that I showed you before and everything like that. So welcome to Workbrew.
Very neat, very neat. Let's see the question. So we can push package out to a fleet with Workbrew. There is a good package that should use code commitison. I'm not sure. Maybe you're not.
I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds really good.
Yeah.
And there was a really good question above actually from Zolt, I think.
Oh yeah. Let me see. Was it about?
It wasn't about Workbrew, but it was about open source stuff. So I thought it was really interesting.
Oh yes, yes.
We got to that before we finish.
Absolutely, yes, please. This one, and this is dear near to everybody that's thinking about maybe contributing and doesn't feel like they're quite there yet. So, how much time did it take you? What will it take to become confident in open source contributing? Yep. And how do you deal with the expectations of other reviewers? Or when did you know your code is good enough?
Yep. So I'm going to work backwards from the end. So your code is never good enough. My code is never good enough. I've been probably writing code in some form for, I don't know, maybe, I guess, just probably over 20 years now. And I've been working on Homebrew for 15, but I still, this very week, you can go and have a look at the Homebrew issue tracker and see how in that performance PR I mentioned earlier, I also broke something, which broke a bunch of Homebrew's testing. It broke things for some users and everything like that. So that code was not good enough. It got reviewed by someone else, a very talented code reviewer and programmer, but he did not spot the mistake either. So there you go. That's what's going to happen. But I think if I can give anyone advice, and this goes to whether you're doing open source or whether you're doing closed source stuff or working or learning or whatever, you're going to write bugs. The one inevitability with all software is there are going to be bugs. And like, also the sooner you can detach the sense of if you introduce a bug, that like you don't beat yourself up and be like, I'm a bad person, I'm an idiot, I suck, whatever it may be. And you just be like, well, everyone writes code, and sometimes you write some bugs and sometimes you don't write some bugs, right? And if I was writing code that had to be on the space shuttle or whatever, then chances are probably the number of bugs would be reduced, but it would take me a lot longer to do it. And sometimes actually spending that time and doing things really, really, really slowly, but really carefully is what's worthwhile. And sometimes it's not. And as to the first question, how much time did it take you to become confident in open source contributing? I guess I got started with open source probably, less than 2 or 3 years after I started coding for the first time ever, really. I didn't really do any meaningful coding before I did a degree when I did computer science, and I used Linux back in those days. And I kind of, I sort of started getting involved with contribution. This was all before GitHub. So the contribution, I sent a few patches back and forth and stuff like that, but it mainly looked in the early days like just hanging out in RC channels and helping people out where I could, or posting on issues where I could figure stuff out, or testing other people's patches or whatever it may be, and writing some docs and stuff. But with GitHub, the beautiful thing is, I don't think you need to be really great or really confident or whatever. Like, it's the best way to learn and to get good is just to get started, right? And as I said, with Homebrew, I didn't know any Ruby to begin with, and a lot of the Ruby I wrote was terrible. A lot of the Ruby I still write is terrible. But it's about kind of just learning along the way and trying to enjoy that experience. And at the end of the day, on a project like Homebrew, if you're submitting a contribution, like, everyone wants you to succeed. Everyone wants you to learn and get better. And we all kind of care about growing the number of people who contribute to open source and Homebrew and everything like that. So yeah, I would just encourage you to just try it. A good thing that people used to say a lot, less so now in open source, was this idea of scratching your own itch. And what was meant by that, and I think it's a good thing that you can learn from if you want to get started with open source contribution, is this idea of the best bug to fix is a bug that's really annoying you. Because even if it might be harder than a really easy bug, then I guess, Pranav just asked, he said he wanted to contribute as well. Like, the best way to contribute is find something that annoys you. It's either a bug, or something doesn't work quite the way you expect it to, or maybe fails some of the time or whatever. And it's much easier, I think, to motivate yourself to work on that stuff, where it's something where like, hey, if this gets merged and included, and depending on the software in a new release, or gets released straight away, then I can benefit from that straight away. At the end of the day, I still use Homebrew. I still use Homebrew every day.
Right.
And the things I'm most likely to fix most quickly in Homebrew are the things that annoy me the most. The performance improvement I added for Workbrew, but went into Homebrew. No one told me to do that. Customers don't request that. I essentially requested it myself because I noticed something was too slow, and I was getting very angry because I'm very impatient that something took a second when I thought it should take 0.1 of a second. So I made it take 0.1 of a second instead of taking a second, and now I'm happy. But if I'd gone to a list and was like, oh, well, which issue is going to help other people the most, it probably wouldn't have been that one. But it's the one that I found it the easiest to move myself to work on. So
there you go. That
good luck to all of you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That motivation came from a personal problem. So find the thing that annoys you, the thing that you want to fix, or the thing that you're into, the thing that you're interested on, and it makes you excited to sit down and write code. Mike, it's been so nice having you. Thank you so much. Is there anything coming up for you that you want to share? Like, are you going to go talk somewhere, or no? Come back here and talk.
Yeah. So I'm going to speak if anyone's in Japan next, in a couple of weeks, I think it is, there's the Ruby Kaigi conference. It's the main kind of international conference for Ruby in Japan. So I'm going to be going over there, and I'm going to be speaking about Homebrew and Ruby. So I'm really excited to do that. And I'm pretty much every year, I'm at FOSDEM, the Free and Open Source Developers European Meetup in Brussels in February. So Homebrew generally has our AGM where we kind of try and get everyone together around that sort of time. So if you're there, if you see me, please don't be shy. Like, please come and say hello. I met at a conference last year a guy called Bruce Perens, who's the guy who created the term open source. And I took a gratuitous selfie with him and massively fangirled because I feel like, so the thing to remember is if you see me at a conference and if you feel shy or whatever, like however shy you feel, I felt just as shy, if not 10 times as shy when I've met my heroes too. And I'm very friendly, really. I don't bite. And come and say hi, tap me on the shoulder, and we'll have a lovely chat.
Amazing. Unless you're mid-bite or something. Like, let's let Mike eat, and then you can go talk to him. But thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it. I posted a comment on the website for Ruby Kai. I can't say it. And look at you. My Ruby is not Rubian, and you're going to speak on a Ruby conference. So I love that. I love that so much. And hopefully, Sam, hopefully we'll see you there. Mike, you're the best. Thank you so much for all the amazing advice. Thank you to everyone who showed up and asked such thoughtful questions. Super appreciate you being here. And thank you you gave us like a lot, like real life advice and real technical advice. So I'm super grateful for your time today. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And anyone who asked a question, thank you so much. Anyone whose question I didn't get a chance to answer, feel free to send me an email. My emails, I'm not going to give it out right now. It's an exercise to the reader, but it's relatively easy to find. And if you email me, then I'll do my best to respond. Have a great weekend, everyone.
There you go. Thank you, Mike. We'll see you hopefully again soon. Once you go out with Workroot, you have to come back and do it on a demo. Please, please, please. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you so much. Thank you, everyone who joined us for Open Source Friday. Wow, that was incredible. It's so exciting to get to catch up with Mike and also like see what Workroot is gonna be doing. Really, really exciting things coming up. I love that as a byproduct of creating this company, Homebrew is only gonna get better and better and better and better. Like, how cool is that? So definitely shout out to that team that's building this solution, and shout out to all of the core contributor maintainers, folks that are keeping Homebrew alive. Thank you for everything you do. Let's do this giveaway, please, 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 please. Don't leave me yet. I'm going to beam the, there we go. If you haven't entered yet, I'm going to give you like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we'll go ahead and do this giveaway because today is a special day, folks. Special day. Thank you again to everyone who joined. You're the absolute best. All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to use the tool. I'm going to use the little app. So there shall be no nepotism in the giving of the awards. But thank you. Let's do it quickly. And shout out to this. I think, I don't know if it's not an open source project, but we definitely like taking it. Maybe I had an MIT license that allowed us to take it. So the original creator of this is called Islam. We got to drop him a shout out and some stars. All right, let's see. Beautiful. Congratulations, gearheads. Thank you for being here. And to every single one of you who was here with us this Open Source Friday, thank you for supporting open source. Hey, if you know a maintainer, tell them congratulations. I feel like the entire month of May is it's a month for maintainers to be celebrated. So tell them congratulations. Give them a shout out on Twitter, never X, on LinkedIn, whatever. Let's do these things in public and show our appreciation and bring some positivity to this. That is so important to all of us. Thank you, everyone. Gearheads, I'll be sending you an email shortly. I appreciate all of you. We'll see you next week for another Open Source Friday. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye. Take the rest of the day off.